Okay, this is the June 1st, 2022 WMGLD Board of Commissioners meeting. The meeting is being recorded tonight. So I'm just calling everyone to order. Under Chair's remarks, I just wanted to note a few things. The Green Community Energy Reduction Plan was approved by the Town Council and by the School Committee. So what that means is that the Superintendent of Schools and the Town Administrator can sign the plan when it comes before them. So that is all good news, and that's moving forward. I just wanted to note that our summer schedule is a little different than the rest of the year. So our next board meeting is, I'm just consulting the schedule, Wednesday, July 13th at 6:30, and then the one following, we skip a month in August and we go to September 7th, also at 6:30. And then the last thing to note is the reason for doing that, which is that we have the NEPA conference. I believe it's August 14th to 17th. So just a reminder to commissioners, if you're going to sign up. And that's all I have. Any other commissioners' reports?
I attended the Mean General Managers meeting, the first session on May 19th.
The only other thing I wanted to remind everybody, as you probably have seen on the news, there was an incident with the National Grid underground worker in Medford, Mass. So just a reminder, follow procedures, follow EOPs, wear the appropriate PPE. I know even at one point, I think during the, not last month's meeting, but the prior month before, I think it was mentioned that some crews were seen without the proper PPE. Stress the importance of putting those on. I mean, we don't want to be seeing anybody get hurt or anybody lose their life.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to mention it, Dave. The morning of the accident, we had a safety stand down, and Paul Redmond shares all the details of the incident. And there was actually happened to be somebody from National Grid on site that day, and he shared some more information about what happened, which is very tragic. So it serves as a reminder, obviously.
Okay, thanks for that.
And then just share, Pete, I did share out that clean bus rebate program webinar that you had shared with the school committee and the ESC, and that has been passed on to the school business manager, the busing coordinator, and the superintendent and the facilities director. So I think that somebody from the school will participate in that.
Okay, great.
Great. Any other updates? Okay, hearing none. Town Councilor Liaison is not with us this evening. And I don't see any members of the public on at this time. So moving on to the Secretary's report and the approval of the May 11th minutes. I was noting just before the call that the final meeting minutes are actually not in the board book. I just offered one update, which is to have the full motion for the Peabody Peaker plant vote show in the actual minutes, which it was kind of cut off. So that was my only addition. And I think we heard from Pete that he received no other updates. So the question before the board is whether you're comfortable voting on that amendment to the minutes that you reviewed, or whether you would like to defer a month to see the final minutes prior to voting. Does anyone have an objection to voting this evening on the amended minutes?
I don't have an objection. I just saw one typo that I don't know if anyone else caught.
Do you want to share it so we can update it?
Yeah, I don't have page numbers on the version that came through the email, but I'm going to pull it up right now. But it was just above where we took the vote on the project 2015A, it said hydron instead of hydrogen.
Okay,
Okay, so with those two amendments to the minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that motion.
So,
I'll
right,
second
Tom
it.
got it.
Okay. Commissioner Betcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Corsi,
Aye.
Commissioner Calais, aye. Commissioner, sorry, I'm losing track. Prifty
Hi.
and Commissioner Warshall.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous approval of the May 11th meeting minutes.
all right, I'll amend those and post.
Thank you. Okay, on to old business.
Project updates. I don't know if anybody had any specific, I know that we included a draft memorandum of understanding with the school design committee directed towards the school building committee. We had another meeting last week. Dave and I were out, but Vinny attended the meeting. There are still some questions that we need to go over. So that draft that you see in the board book is not final. There are going to be a few more revisions, mostly just clarifications of certain things. So it's still a work in progress, but that's the gist of the content of the an MOU. I don't know if anybody had any comments on the MOU. I think it seems to be moving forward that they are willing to design the building as an all-electric heating. It's important to note that they are still going to have gas at the site. They wanted it for labs and for cooking, and that's fine. So we agreed to that, but their heating load will all be electric as part of all the details that we went over last month. So we're just memorializing it in a memorandum of understanding. Dave, anything else?
No, they were supportive of the memorandum, and the week before, the school superintendent for the VOTEC was on, and they're also very supportive. So seems like all parties involved so far have been very supportive and positive regarding the memorandum of understanding. So there's been no negative feedback.
So my only question is, has it actually come before the school building committee for discussion at this point in time?
They have a subcommittee.
Yep.
They have a subcommittee that meets, and the design team and presents along with the superintendent to the building subcommittee. And then that subcommittee, I believe they make a recommendation whether to support it or not, and also move it towards the building committee.
Mhm.
So there's been some conversation with the building subcommittee because one of their members was on, and that's been positive. So there's no indication to think that the building committee won't support it. But they have a subcommittee that regularly attends the meetings and involved in the discussions.
And can you characterize just quickly the updates that they're requesting to the memorandum of understanding at this time?
Benny, you were at the meeting. What were the 2 or 3 things that they asked for? Because Dave and I were both out.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Let me bring up the email I sent to you guys. It was nothing major. They actually kept stressing how happy they were with it. So it was nothing huge here. Let me see. Okay, so they said they just wanted more detail as to what town departments approved of the project, because we were a little bit vague on that. They just wanted to know electric inspector, building inspector, conservation commission, town engineer, manager. Seems like everyone's on board, but they just wanted that detail in there. They said some questions on the rebates that we would give them and how they would get that money, and they just wanted one word change in the first section about having permanent and emergency power backup generation in case we didn't get the generator in time.
Mhm.
But I explained to him it didn't really matter that the word permanent wasn't in there because there's really no risk to not giving them their permanent power. Because none of that stuff is really a long lead time wait. But again, it was just a small request.
I think the one thing that I heard when I was there was just the desire to have it really clearly laid out who's paying for each element. And I think what I saw is mostly clear, but I just want to make sure that we kind of go through and say where it's WMGLD versus incorporated into the, building project costs. And I think the only area where it's incorporated, if I go through this, is just the electric and gas interconnection costs that you show here. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you mean. So there's in their budget, there's a gas and electric utility interconnection cost in their budget.
Right.
And then we gave them a detailed estimate of both those costs. And we also applied the $300,000 credit that we were going to apply to it. So that they were carrying, I want to say, about 350 or 400 in their budget for those costs. And they're actually going to have to pay out 186. So they are still going to have some costs associated with that, but it's not going to be the amount they were carrying in their budget.
Right. So I think we should just be crystal clear, like under backup generation and batteries. I'm not clear who's paying for what, because they still have a backup system, right? So is that within the scope of the building project, or is that like a WMGLD incentive?
No, I think, so we're providing the backup sources. They still have internal things that they need to do on terms of their throwover schemes and all that, and that's in their design. There's clear detail where you guys had a long meeting on the handoff of where we're providing a third transformer at the site that is their emergency transformer, and how it was going to be, how the power is brought there, and we're providing the transformer, but everything beyond the transformer is on them, and they're aware of that.
And that transformer takes the place of their emergency generator.
Correct.
Yeah, so I just think that being very specific about who's paying for what is helpful. And the other thing I think we'll want is just a sense of the total incentive cost from WMGLD, right? So like an estimate of what, for example, 5 level 2 electric vehicle chargers is for us, for our purpose, right? And a sense for what the rooftop solar benefit would be. So I think we've been tracking, what those benefits are over time.
Mhm.
But this looks great, and I'm very happy to hear that so far there's been, support and interest.
Gallup, just thank you for doing this. This is, looks great. Very much appreciate all of the hard work that the entire team has put forth on this. I really do think it is a testament to your work that has kind of turned this to their thought process and redesigning.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a lot of work since, back in September, and I really appreciate the text building committee, because and more so the design team has been very receptive. We've had very, very good meetings for several months now, and they've been very good to work with. They've never said, no, we're not doing this, and they've wanted to explore all the options, and so I think we've come to a good solution.
Yeah, and I think it's, will be mutually beneficial to both organizations.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think beneficial to the town of Wakefield when they get to their own high school.
yeah, this is a good blueprint for that as well.
Mhm.
Sorry, never mind. Back to you, Jen.
No, I have no further questions. I think it all.
So we'll send out a revised, we can also send out a separate spreadsheet that summarizes the hour dollars as they're associated with the project. But I think I think we've touched in a bunch of different areas to make one of the things we talked about probably 2 or 3 months ago was the whole idea that a lot of these building codes are be EV ready and be solar ready. And we're saying, no, we want EVs there and we want solar there. It's trying to push that concept.
Yep. Yeah, be capable, not ready. So.
Yeah. In terms of other project updates, we've still had a smattering of COVID cases. It's just kind of ticking along. Class of 1971 had a big reunion that became a super spreader event, and we have 2 people that are still from the class of 71 that got it. So on the solar project, you'll see the transformer in front of the building on 40 North Ave being changed out as part of that project. We're upgrading the transformer to handle both the electric vehicle load and the be prepared for the solar project as well. So that's moving along. There's just detail on the pole replacement stuff. So yeah, the chargers in the garage. I don't know if I mentioned last month, the electric van is in. We're still waiting for the electric pickup and the electric bucket. It's still a diesel fired engine, but it's a electric lift system. So and that'll require charging too. So those are both expected in the early fall. So. And the chargers will be in soon.
Thanks. Just as part of the manager's report on the EV charging dashboard, and we can potentially take this offline. Just under the station usage, the first time I've noticed it, it says the last 30 days, but it has in parentheses M-F, which I'm assuming is Monday through Friday. Is that not capturing at least the graph that we're seeing the weekend usage?
No, it should capture all the usage for the month.
Okay. Just because the fact that it has last 30 days, I read that as Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Station usage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Under.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Last 30 days, Monday through Friday. Oh, that's interesting because the data, when I look at the data, it has all the, okay. I'll look at that, Tom, and then I will,
Okay, awesome.
I'll get back to you on that.
Appreciate it. Because that's if we're not capturing the weekend,
Yeah, no, that's a big gap if we're not capturing the weekend. So I'll look at the data behind that.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Pete, in regards to the EV vehicles that you're obtaining, for a storm event, in the event of the loss of power to the facility, what's the plan of charging or keeping those vehicles charged and in use?
We have a gas-fired backup generator at the building.
Backup generator, okay. Thank you.
And we'll have solar soon. Although I don't think it'll help in a storm, but.
Not unless you've got that transfer switch and battery.
Yeah. We're making Tyler go up to the roof with a squeegee.
Are we still rebidding 1 Wakefield Ave as said here?
We'll get to that. It's kind of hasn't been on our priority plate, but we will get to it. We're already in Q2 now. Yeah, we should probably update that.
So I did give the solar update. So you provided some additional data on the solar on the Broadway building. So I did give that additional data to the town in the Green Communities presentation. And the data was basically that up to December, I believe, of 2021, the facility had saved $4,500 total in energy costs due to the solar on the roof, and about 30% of that was used by the building directly and 70% was sold back to grid. So that building is not a big user, which is why you see the metrics the way they are. Other buildings might have a different split in terms of what would be used by building and sold back to grid, but because that is kind of a garage building, there's more sold back to grid.
Yeah. The other building that they're planning to work on is more of the pump building, so you should see much more of it used by the building itself.
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of compare, as we work through some buildings in town over the years, I'd like to compare those kind of metrics, you know, so we can kind of see what the differences are. Any other questions on this?
No, I'm good.
The next topic was the gas moratorium discussion. I included the minutes from the meeting from 2019 for the exact wording that we used then. And I think based on our discussion, we probably just want to amend it to include, if we want to, residential new construction and keep it as simple as that.
So I know we had asked for some follow-up information, and I guess I just wanted to check with board members whether this is what you are envisioning receiving, whether it's sufficient or whether you are looking for more.
Well, I remember from the discussion last month, somebody mentioned that somebody else had tossed around the idea of carving out a situation where something would be considered new, but it's on the same footprint. So that was one of the things that I didn't know if it was going to be included or not.
Yeah, I thought the feedback I got was that they didn't want to deal with the quote unquote renovation side of it and just strictly stay with complete new construction.
So this means that a conversion could still happen.
Correct.
Can we actually walk through that in a little more detail? Because I'm sorry, I'm not following. You mean a tear down situation, like a complete tear down situation of an existing? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, the town has different definitions for renovation. They might keep up a small wall or keep the foundation, and that would be considered a renovation. So that wouldn't be included in this modification to the restriction. And we talked last month a little bit about, well, what if they already have gas and now you're gonna have to tell them they're gonna take it out, that type of stuff. So that's where it got much more complex. So I think the feedback, at least I thought I heard, was that we want to still expand the limitation to strictly new construction so that we didn't limit people that might be modifying or upgrading their homes.
So I have just a follow-up clarification. So let's say the existing home is fueled by natural gas. It's torn down and the foundation is kept and it's rebuilt, then it would still have gas.
Correct. That was my understanding of the concerns that were raised last month.
If the existing home is fueled by oil for heating purposes, torn down, foundation still exists and rebuilt, and they request gas service, what happens? What would happen?
In today's world, we would, if they were as part of the reconstruction, if they didn't, they would either go on a waiting list, or if they do the trenching out to the gas line, then we would lay the pipe. We would still charge them. But typically what we do in those situations is if they're willing to do the excavation, we will provide the gas service.
And then under the proposed moratorium, would that be included in the moratorium and new service not provided, or would that provide, will we still provide service? In the,
Again, in my understanding of what was raised last month, we would still do that. Unless you guys want to change the wording, that, and you can modify it however you want, but that was what I heard as one of the concerns last month. So but again, that's up to you guys. But typically today, the way it would work prior to any modifications to the moratorium, if somebody's building a new home in that scenario and it's not going to become multifamily like the one we discussed several months back, if the builder is willing to excavate so that we don't have to take a whole day or 2 days to install the gas service and we're simply laying the pipe and setting the meter, then we would typically allow that.
and are we still prior to that, are we still consulting and advising to explore heat pump prior to any of those decisions being made?
We haven't really been in that specific scenario. Those single family situations, we make it, the stuff's available on our website, but we really haven't been tackling that.
Okay. So in the situation where we, I think it was almost last summer, and the example that Jack had brought up on Prospect, those where that one house was torn down and 3 new homes were built, the new, the kind of proposed moratorium on new residential, though that would apply in that scenario. Those 3 homes would not have been eligible for.
Correct. The proposed modification would definitely cover that. Yes.
Okay.
But then at what point is at what point is the cutoff for a person applying? For example, in the case of that one small house that was torn down and they're putting up 3 new houses, 2 of those houses entered construction yet. And so I'm assuming that, well, I don't know, did they even apply for gas service or have they not applied for gas service for that 3rd house?
I'm not sure yet on that one. I don't know if there's been a permit pulled for that yet. I think, in a situation like that, we'll have to look at where it stands. And if we take this vote now, we're going to have to see where anything is in the building permit process and deal with it based on that.
I
All right,
think on the example that, go ahead, Jack, I'm sorry.
all right, so I was just going to add that at this point, I'm just a little bit unsure what the benefit of extending this moratorium would be if we're talking about new construction, single family homes. I just don't really see that many of those even going up in Wakefield. So I'm kind of just at a loss for what the benefit is of this, of expanding the moratorium.
Well, I would say, those that do fall, would be captured under that, and we wouldn't be adding the new load from those. so we'd be, all the new, under the moratorium now is the multifamilies, and then adding, just kind of new construction, single family homes, which would also continue to not add to the load.
Yes, that's the part that I'm talking about. I don't know what that number is. I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know what the impact is.
Instead of just new construction, would we say there's a moratorium on any new gas service request? Meaning even the example that Jen brought up, like a house that is currently on oil, existing home, just looking to get gas service. Could we say we're not expanding our gas network any longer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would capture more is where, you have that renovation of someone and not, where that's excluding those that already have gas service, this wouldn't include the scenario where someone is taking out oil, that, a new line wouldn't be trenched in, I guess is kind of the thought process I'm having is if someone's asking to put a new gas lab space and just in residential.
So the moratorium that Elton defined is what Middleborough and I believe Westfield currently have. Is a full moratorium on any new gas services.
Well, I for one, I'm not really in favor of doing that. The last moratorium was suggested by the general manager, seeing the problem of all the new apartments and condos being built and us not having adequate supply. In this case, we do have adequate supply. We're managing the supply. We're managing the budget. We are in the energy business. We only have two commodities, electricity and natural gas. And I think this is a real burden we would be putting on, the construction or the renovation of new homes. And I think it's very, very costly. And I don't see the need to do this at this time.
And I would add to that I still have the same concern I expressed last month, which is this is a big decision. And I would think that similar to when we had the problem with those oversized poles at the lake, that we should give people a heads up and allow for a comment.
Pete, from your, to Bill's comment, supply, how is the peak load of gas this winter compared to previous winters?
I mean, I don't think the good news is the worst of it is stopped, and any single family residential doesn't have a significant incremental impact, especially where new homes are being built much more efficiently, with the new code, obviously we have stretch codes around insulation and building envelope and all that. The trade-off is that in the single family home situation, they do have the alternative that in the multifamilies, there was minimal chance that people were going to put in huge oil tanks and in these multifamily units. In the case of a brand new single family, we could actually end up forcing some of these. We could get some to go to heat pump, but unless we change the town's building code, you couldn't prevent them from going to oil. So there's a chance that if there were 10 homes built, 5 might be all electric, but 5 might be oil. So, you know, you don't really make it a net gain, so.
Would, you know, when we do get requests, so, you know, the scenario either or, you know, net new construction, you know, from the greenfields ground up, or the kind of tear down, we're going to just keep the foundation and we're asking, you know, and we had oil. Could we, when we get the application for gas, can we, you know, put a program into before you know, any shovels go in the ground, that they have a consultation with a boat?
Well, the issue with that type of construction is we're not involved at the same point in time as we are in the larger multifamily buildings. We're brought in much earlier on those in their design phases. We're in you know, in a single family, a lot of times we're getting the call as the building's being built, where do you want the meter? You know, it's well down the path, because we're not required to be involved at the design end. When you buy a house and you tear it down and you're going to build a house, you know you're going to get electricity, you could get gas, but you don't need to bring us in until you're, you know, well underway in the design and construction process, versus those large multifamilies where we have to be brought in because you're looking at significant electric load, the potential of significant gas load, which, you know, we've changed, but so the portion of the design process that we're in is much different. I think that, I'm not sure, Ellen, but I'm pretty sure it's probably the same case at National Grid, and I know it was at Eversource. We have, you know, our ECS, when I was at Boston Edison, the ECSDs would be going out as the, you know, the framing was done and just deciding where we're going to bring the service in, type of thing.
Yep.
It's a much different point in the process.
Agree.
Is there, I guess, I don't know, is there a way to intercede prior to that? You know, maybe that there is, with every, you know, building permit that would be issued, that, you know, a letter goes out with it, you know, around that, you know, if someone is looking for gas service that needs to engage with us sooner. I don't know if that's something that's feasible.
It'll probably be more of a town thing than a Wakefield Gas and Light thing.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that this is more of a town code issue. There has been interest in looking at town codes, and so this is something that could be handled with that.
We can have a more comprehensive discussion with, you know, all the parties. If somebody wants to bring together a meeting, we would be part of that. But it's definitely, as we expand this beyond, you know, the apartments on Foundry Street, we're not going to get, as you can see in the board book, when we talk about the major projects, we're brought in, you know, very early on most of those. Whereas a single family home, you know, it's well underway, you know, before we get even asked to comment.
Okay, I mean, maybe it's best then to convene a larger meeting on building codes. I mean, to your point, Jack, right? It would be a townwide discussion of all the different code options and yeah, what folks want to consider.
We can only influence. The town can require,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so big difference.
Yeah, and the other thing is a lot of these units actually might go to whole home propane, which is even worse in my mind than oil. We're seeing some new homes go to full home propane, which is a nightmare.
Have you seen any actually do it? Because
There have been stories, yeah. I'm like,
it's
oh, no.
crazy expensive. I mean,
Absolutely nuts.
yeah.
So that's my bigger fear.
Yeah. I can't imagine people would do it, but you know, then again, we're almost relying on the fact that a large multifamily would never go to oil. I guess they could someday, but right now the prices are such that they would never would, but because we haven't really mandated that they couldn't, but we've kind of driven them to that decision by the fact that the alternative is not a good one, so.
Yeah, Jen, to your point, the builders are doing it. I know of brand new construction out in Ashburnham that's the whole subdivision, every home they put in propane.
They don't really care what the energy costs are because they won't be paying them.
Correct. Yep. And I can tell you it's painful.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we have propane just for hot water and for our stove, and propane is expensive.
Okay. I mean, I'm satisfied with kind of revisiting this on a broader scale with the town and not expanding the moratorium here. If that's that seems to be the direction that everyone's headed as well. And I agree, Jack, I don't know what the impact of doing expanding the moratorium in the way that we can would be. I don't know how many foundations are poured anew and everything. I don't have any of that information to know what that impact could or would be.
So Pete, do you know, like I was just looking at the board book where we have the new services, in March we had 2 new gas services, in April and 5. Do you have a breakdown of what those were?
Where are you seeing it?
Those would all be resident. You mean commercial versus residential, Tom? Is that what-
It just in the board, in our dashboard, new services on the system, we have listed March 2 and April 5 under
Yeah.
gas.
Yeah.
I
To my
don't,
knowledge, there haven't been any commercial
okay.
recently, so those are all residential.
Are we tracking, is that, are those conversions, new construction? Maybe these are the data points that we kind of need to start tracking, whether what they're kind, are these greenfield net new construction? Are they, conversions from a renovation, or are they coming off of oil? Yeah, it's, we know that there's 7 new connections on the system, but what are those connections and what do they come from?
Right, all of the above, and I don't have a specific breakdown, conversions versus on these. I can get with Raven and we can sort that out.
Yeah, is that something, are those metrics that you get and they're just not in the dashboard, or those metrics that you would kind of need to gather, go forward?
Yeah, like I said, Raven, yeah.
We could find out, we still have a waiting list for new gas services, for single family homes. And if we are on a street going by it, we might we'll add the service. Or if somebody's building something and they do the trenching themselves, we'll tie them in. So that's probably those 7.
And I assume that because didn't the town change from a paving perspective? It went from 5 years to 10 years on a non-emergent newly paved road.
I think it's 7.
Is it 7? Okay, I know it increased from 5.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that factors in too, obviously. So we wouldn't dig in that scenario. We would typically tell the customer, yeah, you can't dig on that street for a while. And again, the streets that we're actively working on are pre-paving, obviously. So that's why we try to take care. If there's a house on a waiting list on Grafton Street and we're working on Grafton Street, we're going to bang out that service.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Do we want to move on? Okay, not hearing any objections. Collective bargaining?
I sent out all the contracts last week. I thank Phil for participating in all our meetings. I don't know if there's any specific questions. if there are specific concerns or objections, we might have to jump into executive session. If not, if there's more generic questions, then we could probably answer them in the public setting. Either way, we'll take a vote in public.
Can you just describe the implications of number 4? So I just wanted to clarify whether this was actually a reduction in salary or just a lesser increase. It says some positions were redefined and salaries for entry-level personnel were reduced back to market levels for some positions which were too high.
Yeah, so the entry-level positions in gas and substation were much higher than in the line force. And so we actually adjusted those down somewhat significantly. So the kid coming out of high school or a year or two of a certificate program, they're all going to be basically making the same thing. Right now, the entry-level position in the gas department and in the substation department used to be much higher. And so we've leveled that off. So there actually were salary reductions in that level for that level of experience. And, you know, so that was a problem we had because we were paying an entry-level gas worker a very high rate. So that was part of the trade-off of this contract is we brought those entry-level salaries down for substation and for gas apprentice. We actually created the position of gas apprentice now instead of a B-Tech, because a B-Tech, the legacy of it was that we didn't have a lot of turnover in that department. So those entry-level salaries kind of migrated up with the years of experience. But then we went back now to, you know, those folks have kind of retired away and we're coming back around again. And now we're potentially bringing in a kid who's 18 or 20 or 21 years old at, you know, with just a high school degree at like 85 grand or something like that, you know. So we had to fix the entry level. It was too high.
And this is not just applicable to new hires. This is applicable to existing staff.
Well, certain people a lot of the staff is beyond, nobody's going to take a pay cut. So a lot of these people aren't at the entry level right now. They've moved along. So this will apply mostly to any new entrants.
That was going to be my question, just to.
Yeah, nobody's going to take a pay cut.
Okay, thank you.
But we needed to take this opportunity to deal with that as people retire going forward. We'll have a couple of retirements in the electric within the next couple of years. We'll have 2 or 3 in gas, at least 1 in substation, probably 2 in the next. So if we don't adjust this now, we're going to perpetuate the problem.
I did have a couple of comments. One, the union made no unreasonable demands. 2, all their asks were well thought out and presented. 3, the union approach was fair to all the groups, linemen, gas workers. It wasn't dominated by one group or one department. And 4th, they were good to work with overall.
And I will say that it's the company's changed over the past 15 years. These sessions, I know Jack sat through for a few years. It could get a little bit more hostile. So it's evolved over time. I think there's a much stronger working relationship and a little bit of shared trust. And I think, you know, we've come a decent way. And I think that they get the fact that it's a business deal. It's not them walking in and say, how much you're going to give me. It's, you know, there were things that we needed to see in this contract, like the adjustment of the entry level stuff to make it work.
In terms of the language, I noticed in the contract for the Employees Association, on page 17, section 13.8, it talks about perfect attendance. And it looked like the word between is missing in two places. Between April 1st and September 30th, and between October 1st and March 31st.
I can look at that.
And that also applies in the supervisory association contract. It's the same, the word between is apparently missing in two places.
Okay, yeah, it's basically the same language for both, so
Mhm.
I'll look at the, oh,
Yeah, and actually in the same vein, the sentence following that is missing a D for the word day.
we can fix those.
Yeah, the only other thing that was an inconsistency, which is just very minor, is in one contract, the sick leave buyback is at 25% and the other one is 1/4. So I don't know whether you just want to make that language consistent.
Yeah,
I mean, it means the same thing, but
yeah. I can fix that language. The goal is to make it consistent, so.
Phil, thank you for sitting in on these and, being the board participant on that. Much appreciated from my side.
My pleasure.
I agree. Yeah, I think this all looks very good. Appreciate the hard work. We do need to take a vote to approve. So if there, last call for questions on this. Hearing none, I will take a motion.
I'll move the motion forward.
Second that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the agreements as documented in the board book
With the minor revisions noted.
with the minor revisions just noted from a grammatical standpoint. Commissioner Betcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Corsi,
Aye.
Commissioner Calais, aye. Commissioner Prifty,
Aye.
Commissioner Warshall,
Aye.
and the vote passes unanimously.
I'll edit those, and what I'll do is I'll get signature sheets out to everybody, like we've done with the what do you call it, the annual DPU reports. If I'll make the edits, I'll put a hard copy, and I'll have a separate signature page that you can just return to the Dropbox, and then we'll get it off to the union. We'll sign with them. Both unions met, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and they approved tentatively as written, so we're good.
Okay, great.
Work.
Uh,
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into executive session then, correct? And any other issues that anyone wants to raise before we?
So we did put off my contract and raise till after this was done, so I don't know if you do you want to have, I think it was Phil and Jen were the general managers committee. Do you want us to get back together again and chat?
Sure, but I'm not clear what we need to do. So can you just? summarize?
So my contract, well, we didn't do a raise this year. We decided we didn't want to do the raise until after the union contract was done. Also, my contract is entering into its last year, so we can look at it as a whole or just the raise for this year. But we should probably sit down and review it.
Okay. Yes, that sounds
Fine.
good. And when is the contract done? Oh, sorry, what is the end date specifically?
So it was originally a 3-year contract, which extended after 3 years. There were 2 optional years. And so we are in the first of the 2 optional years. So it would automatically continue again in January, one more year, or we could revisit it now. It's up to you guys. So it's basically, I'm in year 4 of a potential of 5.
Okay, I think we should take this offline and Phil and I should discuss to start, and then we should get in touch with you to meet.
Mhm.
And then for me, I just wanted to, Pete, thank you for taking care of the request from the farmers market. I know that they and the town are very appreciative of that. And then the only other, I have a question, are we putting trucks in the 4th of July parade?
We typically don't put trucks in it, so. I'm hoping the road's gonna be done by then.
Do we want to put trucks in it? I guess the next question. Or is there a reason not, a business reason not to from a
We do have one, we usually pull one truck out of the area so that it can respond to trouble. And then we typically haven't, because a lot of people used to like to go to the parade themselves with their families.
Okay. That makes sense.
The problem we would have is that we could assign the call guy to do it, but if he's in the parade and he's the call guy and he actually gets an emergency, he's either gonna have to ride over people to get out of the parade or.
Okay, any other items? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second, do I have a second?
Second that.
All right, Commissioner Betcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Corsi,
Aye.
Commissioner Calais, aye, Commissioner Prifty,
Aye.
Commissioner Warshall.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.